Hi guys, and welcome to episode 6 of the Elbow Down podcast. Today I'm joined by a special guest. I'm joined by Matt Last. Do you want to introduce yourself, Matt?
Yeah, so you just said it. I'm Matt. I am the data engineer in the Red Bull KTM Ajo Moto 2 team.
Yeah,
This year, currently with Albert Arenas. Just got back from America yesterday.
yeah. So very happy to have you on for this because you must be knackered.
A bit of jet lag, I didn't get to sleep till 3 in the morning and then woke up at 11. I hope tonight's a better night.
Yeah, definitely. So for as Matt has just said, for if you don't know, he's with Albert Arenas this year. Figured it'd be quite good to have you on because you can provide a perspective from inside the MotoGP paddock of the discussion points from the weekend, and I can provide
Yeah,
them from outside, and it'll be quite interesting to see what matches, what doesn't, and just go from there. Uh,
perfect. Let's see what happens.
yeah. So normally I do a bit of news, but there is no news. There were rumors of Suzuki returning, but I've decided not to talk about it because it's just absolutely unfounded. So on we go. Not gonna happen. Deal with it. On we go to Moto 3. So I want to start with the winner, Ivan Ortola, and his first lap miracle save. Um, what did you make of Ortola's race on the whole?
For me, impressive, but I thought that was just sheer determination. If I'm honest with you, I think you see a rider there that had a very bad start, as you saw. His mistake, I think, touching the white line and an incredible save.
Oh yeah,
Um, but I think he just got his head down. He got confidence when he started overtaking people and seeing his own speed, and he thought, why not? Let's go for it.
yeah,
And then when he got to the leading group, I think he just got to the leading group, and Sasaki crashed,
yes,
and and he was like, right, let's go for it. Masia went wide, and he saw himself in the podium spots, and then, like I say, he just had that inner drive, that inner determination that he just went for it. So
mm,
hats off, fair play to him, and let's see if that gives him a bit more drive now that he's achieved that to do more.
yeah. As you say, I agree. Like that, he had the dog in him, didn't he? After that, I don't know whether
100%.
when his meat and two veg meat in the tank give him a rush of testosterone or something. I don't know, but you could tell he was almost feeling unbeatable. Like his body language, everything was just, I'm gonna win this, whether you like it or not.
Exactly, and I mean, I know we'll come on to it later in Moto 2, but I would have said Ben Schneider was a similar thing.
Mm,
First lap, terrible, and then they just get a rhythm. And Austin is a track where you have to have a rhythm.
yes,
Um,
definitely.
it's a brutal track in terms of physicality. The first half is you're not in the saddle, you're just flipping the bike left to right, left to right. And the second half is all about stop, start, and long, fast corners that you've got to hold on for.
Mm,
So if you can get yourself in a rhythm and go for it, then there's absolutely any chance. Then you can do that.
yeah, definitely. I mention Ortola because I did want to make the point that I think it's excellent that Angelus have got their first podium because women's representation in MotoGP it's not a bad thing, absolutely not. And sending Aurora Angelucci up, the MTA team manager, seeing her on the podium, young girls everywhere are going to be looking up and thinking that could be me, and I like that.
100%.
Like that's just that's the way it should be, in my opinion. Is like I'm very happy that, like, obviously I'm extremely happy for Ortola. I'm extremely happy for the MDA squad, to Alessandro Tucci as well. He's built that up from very little,
Mm.
and to get like,
I mean, I don't see the commentary that you guys see on the TV at home. But yeah, I mean, I just saw the girls outside my box. Actually, they were going to the podium and they hugged each other, and
yeah,
it was almost like a sheer shock of we've done it. We've got a podium, and
yeah,
yeah, I know that feeling, the first podiums and stuff, and it's undescribable. You put your heart and soul into this job, so from anyone, it's a great feeling. But to know what they're doing it for is also fantastic. There's not many women engineers, but I have to say, of the ones that I do know, they are very successful in the MotoGP paddock.
Yes.
A few data engineers in the GP teams. There was one in Moto 2 in the past. There's currently one in the 658 team. So there's definitely a few out there.
Yeah.
And it's nice. It's a great representation for them all, and that anyone can do it. You put your head to it, and anyone can do it.
Yeah, it's a great story, and like it truly is. It's like I love it. It's just brilliant.
No, it's fantastic. And as with Ortola, let's hope they get a few more.
Yeah, because Ortola definitely has the skill. Like we've seen him, doing bits in Chev, doing bits in even in the Talent Cup. Like he was in the Aspar Junior setup, and he was just doing bits. I was very surprised he didn't go up with Aspar actually. But, their loss is MTA's gain.
Well, exactly. I know 2 years ago it was Holgado. I'm sure they had last year in the CEV, but it's tricky. I think sometimes as well. It's where KTM put people.
Yes. Yeah, that's it.
So it's a bit out of people's hands, riders' hands.
Definitely. As we saw with Rueda, for example. Like, once he won the rookies, he absolutely was going to end up at Ajo.
Well, exactly. And I also look at the same with Pedro. He was meant to be, where was he meant to be? I think he was meant to be at MT Helmets or CIP or something like this.
No, no, it was, oh, jeez, I cannot remember. Prustel.
Yes, I think it was Prustel he was meant to be at. CF Moto. And somehow he managed to get his way into the Ajo camp. And if I'm honest, if he was anywhere else, I don't think it'd have been where he is now.
No, definitely not. Like no offense to Prustel, absolutely none. They're a well-run squad, but they are not Ajo.
No, and look, they've been competitive with Bezecchi in the past. Third in the championship in 2017, so it's not a bad team by all means. But I think with the KTM umbrella, maybe that gave confidence. I don't know. But that's the sort of example. Exactly, it's the sort of example where KTM get their fingers in, and look, it was the right call.
Yeah, but like they've absolutely been proven correct, haven't they? Let's be honest.
No, exactly. So, I'm not sure what happened with Ortola. But yeah, maybe KTM got their hands in there from the Spanish CV to this championship, and
100% MBA's gain. You mentioned it earlier, but I want to go on to Sasaki. Second crash in 2 races. Not the best thing to happen to you early season if you were considered a championship contender, should we say?
No, it's not. But Argentina was tricky conditions. The track had so much grip in the wet. I think the Moto 3 was it 6 or 7 seconds off their dry time.
Yeah.
So usually you're looking at 12 to 14 seconds slower than a dry time. So they were fast. So you don't know where the limit is when you're going that fast, because it gets a bit confusing. Oh, do I take the dry braking marker or whatever? Or do I get on the gas here?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you saw Dennis Unku go off, and in my opinion, he should have said to himself, okay, I'm clearing off from the others, just rein it back 1 or 2%. Sasaki, I think, was a bit more later in the race, and
it was when Almanza was hounding him.
Yeah, you've just got to. They're the risks you take when you fight for the title, and you've just got to go with it. However, I would say he should take the positives, and I'm sure he's got the people around him to do that. Is that he's been leading races, so take the positives on how he managed that, understand why he crashed, and stop that happening again later down the line.
Yeah, because it's not easy to lead a Moto3 race for many laps. Like, absolutely is not.
No, and I was actually saying to my guys on the weekend, when you watch him ride, he has matured a lot last year and this year,
Yes.
with this team. So when you watch him ride, he just looks at one with the bike.
Yes.
Um,
Yes, that's exactly right. Like, it looks like it was made for him.
exactly, and if I'm honest, I put that down to his practice sessions. If you watch him on track, he just rides alone, and I
Yes.
think they're the best Moto 3 riders. They look at Guevara last year.
Yeah.
He just rode on his own in the practice sessions. Look what he did in the race. It taught him how to lead races. Binder did it in the past. Mir did it in the past.
Yeah.
So for me, they can it as well. Was one that
That
in
is the
Moto.
caliber, isn't it? Like, of rider that we're talking about who were able to do that. So I agree.
Exactly.
There's definite potential.
Yeah.
However, how much
Two
is
crashes. Yeah, maybe he should have thought to himself, "Am I going over the limit? Can I just take some points here?" But
how much is this going to knock his confidence as well? Is my other question, because to lead both races and come away with 0 points from these two races.
yes, it's a lot of points lost. But ultimately, as a top level rider, you've got to dust yourself off and get back on and go again. I always laugh. I look back at Augusto last year, and I think after the fourth race, we were eighth in the championship.
Yeah, yeah,
So, and this year with 21 races, it's a long season. Anything can happen, especially in Moto 3. You've just got to be there, be consistent. Well, be consistent in all categories, but Moto 3, you've got to be there. If I believe he can claw back those points, it's a long enough season to claw back those points.
mm.
And if you've got a few wild cards winning like Ortola and others, then let's see.
Yeah. Because the point I was trying to make then was, okay, yeah, it's inevitably is going to knock his confidence. You know, riders are human. It's going to some degree affect him,
Absolutely.
but nobody else who you would consider a championship contender managed to get big points from those races. He's almost in a luxury position of being able to throw away 50 points, which is mad to say because nobody else has
Yeah,
got it,
that's
you know?
no, it's true. Yeah, it's quite extreme to say a luxury position, but
Yeah.
he's definitely got the skill and the speed and the team around him to be fighting for race wins.
Yes.
So
It'll come.
he's good. Yeah, it's not like I don't know who can I say Ortola. Look, he's won a race, and the team have gained experience, but there's a difference between one race on the podium or a few races on the podium and being consistently up there.
Yes.
So I think that's what he's got in his pocket, that he can be up there to fight with the Leopard bikes or the IO bike, the Tech V bikes and stuff like that.
Yes. Because I don't want to dwell on him too much, but at Portimao, his pole position was 6 tenths faster, and he did it alone than than second place. And I'm just thinking, that is talent. Like that is just brilliance.
No, 100%. I mean, the conditions in Portugal were ideal, but then they were ideal for everyone.
Mm.
He just pulled out the bag the perfect lap, you know.
Mm.
So the fact that he can do that, yeah, shows his talent. And he's now just got to go back now after this week off, come back to Europe and just sort of reset, refocus, and take what he's learned from the negatives, the crashes, and try and combine them with the positives.
Yeah, that's it. Because of course, as you said, there are many positives.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, onto the other NTA bike then, with the David Munoz and Stefano Nepa final corner incident. Um, it was reported at the time that Nepa had broken his leg. That turned out to be false, but he has ruptured something. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
100% sure what. My Italian is poor, I'm afraid. But he's done some damage. And Munoz has a double long lap for Jerez. Good enough?
I mean, if I'm honest, I didn't see the incident. Sometimes at the end of the Moto 3 races, we're focused getting ready for the Moto 2.
Fair enough. Like
Uh,
I can forgive you that.
sometimes I don't see everything.
Well,
Yeah,
just as a, I don't know if you've heard what happened, but basically Munoz tried to stuff it up the inside of Nebra at the final corner, was unsuccessful, both off. Very David
I
Munoz
mean,
move.
this is where the FIM have to start being consistent across all classes. Because if that's the case, I mean, I think we'll come on to it later, but the Martin Marquez incident, I've not heard of anything from that yet.
No, disgraceful, yeah.
But but for instance, the Marquez incident in Portugal, that was just one long lap penalty, I think.
No, it is a double long lap.
Oh, that's also a double. Okay.
This is why I do think it is right, as in it's consistent. Scotty Ogden at Argentina got the equivalent of a double long lap for knocking off Almanza.
Yeah.
So there is consistency, but at
But
what point do you stop and think, where's the line between move and stupidity? I think
well,
Munoz
yeah,
crossed it.
this is the main question that, if I'm honest, I feel like the decision makers in race control have lost their way of what it takes to ride a bike at the moment.
Yes, that is a good way to put it, because yeah, you're right. As in,
Because if I'm honest, I think when Alicia Spargo retires from motorcycle racing, he should be the rider representative in race direction.
yes,
Because I think he is the perfect rider to see things from and stand up for people.
yes.
Um,
We're already hearing noises about that, actually.
I
So
mean, I've thought it for a few years. There was a few years ago, he was standing up for one of my riders. I can't remember who it was, and it was like he's already seeing it and he's focusing on his riding, you know. So for me, one of the biggest thing last year was the Fabio Quartararo incident. You know, where he touched Alicia Spargo in Assen.
yeah, we've actually discussed this previously, haven't we? And
Okay, so but this is the fine line. He tried to overtake Alicia, which was a fair overtake with no contact until Fabio went down. When Fabio went down, his bike went into Alicia.
yes,
Fabio's race was lost. Okay, Alicia's could have been better. It was disrupted, but that's motorcycle racing. So then, if Fabio's down and has no points, he's not gaining anything. Why is he then given a penalty in the next race?
yeah. See, that's where I differed from you slightly. As in, I thought
Yes,
the long lap was fair because of the disruption to someone else's race, and
yes,
that's where
but then
I know we differed, but it's like
yeah,
I get what
but then
you're
that
saying
for me,
100%.
that for me is a fair racing maneuver.
Until it
Um,
wasn't. That's the thing, and it's like
yeah,
I totally understand why you made the move, especially on the Yamaha. You know, it turned on a
yeah,
sixpence at that point. Like it was on to be made. Uh,
yeah.
but and you absolutely should not punish a rider for attempting an overtake.
No, and I think there's all right and wrong ways to do it. Like, I mean, now basically what they're trying to say is that any rider, you basically just got to show your nose in front, and the rider that's being overtaken has to give way. But riders just don't do that.
No,
There's something in their head that just says, "No, I'm not giving up that position. Not giving up that position." And
until you're fully passed, you are not passed. It's that simple.
yeah, I mean, I go back to the incident in Malaysia last year with Jake Dixon and Augusto in
Oh
turn
yeah,
two. You know, like
yeah. Like everybody was slating Dixon for that, and I'm
I
thinking
mean,
you're racing for position. Like he did
but
absolutely nothing wrong.
well, and this is the thing. Like he's made contact with another rider that could have, and Semi did have, disrupt Augusto's race.
Yes.
I mean, Augusto was fuming when he came back in.
Yes. It was pretty
And,
pretty well documented, wasn't it?
and I'm sure it was. And oh, half of me was like, that is just fair racing. Like, there can be a bit of contact, you know?
Yeah.
And that's me with the championship winner, you know? So,
Yeah.
it was
Nowhere in the
so.
rules does it state you can't make contact with another rider at the end of the day.
Exactly. But then it gets to the point now of where's the line where it stops. So going back to the Moto 3 incident, on one hand it's good that there's consistency with the penalties, like they're all getting double long laps.
Yeah.
I think it also depends what track you get it, because we saw in Argentina, I think Garcia only lost 0.8 of a second.
Yeah, that was
Doing the long
mind
lap.
blowing actually. Like granted he fully sent it. Like, he put it on the line.
And I mean, 28th to 5th with a long lap.
Mm.
Hats off, kid.
Like, he absolutely put it on the line, and he could easily
Yeah.
have gone down. But them's the risks you take, innit?
Exactly. So, yeah. Well, like our conversation just then with the Quattraro thing, it's all opinionated.
Yeah, that's it. That's the thing. Like, I did kind of want to bring up. It needs to be black and white, because it's discretion of the stewards at the minute, and who's to say their discretion is not right or wrong?
Well, exactly. I mean, and at the moment, at that moment of impact, you don't know if a rider's injured.
Yeah.
So you've got to take that out of the situation. The riders don't overtake to give bodily harm, you know, like they're not there. They respect each other 110%.
Yes.
It's just for them, for the team, everything, that they want that best position, even if they're fighting for 20th position, you know, they want to finish in front of that person in front.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
The
one point I did want to make, though, was, like you've said about Fabio, which is fair, but Fabio's bike hit a leash while he was down. Fabio didn't hit a leash, in inverted commas.
Yeah.
Whereas Munoz was bolt upright, Nepa was tipping in. Munoz hit Nepa.
Then that.
I think that's where the difference maybe needs to lie.
And I actually fully agree there, because I think Fabio's incident was, there was a space for Fabio.
Yes.
But on this occasion, from what it sounds like, there was not a space.
No. Like looking at it, like, okay, maybe, but when does maybe ever work?
Same as the Marquez incident in Portugal. He went in too hot, had nowhere to go, and he wasn't going to make the corner.
Mm.
So, yeah, the penalties are fair for both of them.
Yeah,
because they weren't making the corners.
Yeah, because
I think that's where
it is. Mark hit Oliveira upright. Mark's bike didn't hit Oliveira. So I think that's maybe where the differences need to lay.
You've got to see if the rider's actually going to make the corner. If the rider's not making the corner, penalty.
Yeah.
If there is a chance that the rider's going to make the corner, you've got to assess it. And
yeah, like personally, which is what this podcast is about. Personally, I think Munoz was never ever going to make that move. He was just coming in like a battering ram and hoping someone sat up. It was that simple.
Yeah, that's not on. You've got to take more control of the situation than that.
Yes, because like without Nebody, he was never going to make the corner. Put it that way.
Mm. And you've got to say to yourself as a rider, like you said, the championship is long. Sometimes you just got to sacrifice one position and take the points.
Yeah.
We'll come on to Moto 2 later, I know, but one of the things I say to my riders now is that if you look at the last few years, whoever has finished third position, I think it was, I can't remember who it was, 2 years ago was, I believe, Hammett, and he had 200 points. The year before was Lowe's and something like 198 points. The year before that was someone with 201. So it's all about the 200 mark. If you divide the number of races we do, it equates to finishing in the top 6
Okay.
every race. So you could have a race, you could finish third, you could finish 8th. It sort of equals itself out. So you apply that to even Moto 3, sacrifice one place or 2 places, make it up at the next race or the next few races,
Yeah. Well,
Um,
the 2020 school of winning titles, basically.
exactly. So that's how I see it. That's what I try and say to my riders. You've just got to use that head of theirs a bit more, and
Yeah.
it's a hard pill to swallow. But I think it's an even harder pill to swallow when you crash.
Yeah, because then you, instead of scoring 16 points, you've scored 0, and a big fat 0 is much worse. Because
Exactly. Yeah.
there's a good chance you're not going to make up 16 points over the next 3 races if you've crashed out.
Well, exactly. It's something you've got to take more
Especially in
time
Moto
to.
2.
Yeah. Takes time.
Yeah, it does. So I want to just mention our championship leader still, which is Danny Olgado.
Mr. Holgado. Yeah.
Does it feel to you like he's already riding with championship in mind?
100%. I think in Moto 3, if I'm honest, I think when Pedro won the title as a rookie, I think it's given the belief to anyone that they can win.
Yes.
I think not only that, but I remember when Dennis was starting from pit lane in Portimao, and we just said to him, "It's been done before. You can do it again."
Yeah. Well,
You
Pedro
know,
did it, didn't he?
and he had a bloody good race. So yeah, for me, Fulgado's definitely got the championship in mind. He had a great first weekend. It's only his second season, so he's still learning these overseas tracks. Let's see what happens when we go back to Europe now, because he's obviously been there with the CEV rookies and stuff like that. So he's RF theoretically should be strong.
Yep.
And Le Mans after that, he's been to many times. So.
Yes, but I believe it was either Le Mans or Mugello last year that he got injured and missed a few races. I want to say.
I know he was injured at the start of the season when he broke his leg.
Yes, and then he done I want to say a collarbone, but that does not sound right to me.
No, that doesn't sound right to me.
Maybe I'm thinking of something else.
Because I actually shared a room with him last year for the whole season. And I don't ever remember him having an injury during the season.
Okay, then. Yeah, I'm thinking of someone else then. Never mind. Right, wipe that. Part 2 of that, then. Is he right to think of the championship this early?
Absolutely. I think anyone can. Even like in Sasaki's position where you've lost points, I think if you're there, believe in it. It's all about belief.
Yeah.
If you're confident in yourself, confident in how you've been riding, and he knows how to handle a championship as well. He's done it in the Spanish, so he's got experience. So he's just like, he was the perfect example in Austin. He was there with the front group, but he was letting them make the mistakes.
Yes.
And he then reaped the benefits from it.
Did the same in Argentina.
So, exactly. So this is what he's doing. Sometimes you've got to be in it to win it, So yeah, for me, he's definitely got the championship in mind. And he's just playing the long game. If he's got to attack at the end of the season, he's got to attack, but at least he's gaining the valuable points.
Yeah, because first 3 races, first, fourth, and fifth. Fifth on the road in Argentina, but obviously Ogden's penalty promoted into fourth. No, not being he's the only rider not to have been outside the top 5 yet all season.
Yeah,
like
it's consistency,
The move to Tech 3 has lit a fire in him. It feels like, because he was absolutely furious at moving from Ajo. Like it's like, quite rightly, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. Because at the end of the day, he grew a bond with his team. He and that helps a rider as well when you know the people inside there and stuff like that. Moving teams is always unsettling because you got to learn new people. It's like starting a new job. It is starting
Yeah.
a new job.
Well, literally, yeah.
And he's obviously built a trust with the guys working on his bike and stuff like this. So he just had to do that again, but they did it quickly for him, and he obviously had the confidence that he could go out and do what he did,
Yeah, because
and
obviously
has done since.
Tech 3 are still an official KTM Red Bull team in inverted commas. So it's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
like it's not a demotion; it's a sideways, in my opinion. But
exactly, exactly. I
but
mean,
at
look
the
at
same
Dennis;
time, you
it's the same
still
thing.
want to be in IO, don't you? Because IO is, it's the spot, isn't it?
I think so, and I think as well, Io is has the pathway to the Moto Two team
Yeah.
that everybody thinks of as well.
Mm.
So
And
that
then
for sure is in everyone's
MotoGP
mind.
to a point.
Exactly. No, that's exactly what it is. It's the filtering system to the gas or factory team.
Mm.
So that's everyone's dream, and it's the safest spot to be in some respect. However, as we said earlier on with KTM, they put people in positions for a reason. So I'm sure that they're they're watching Danny and are prepared to move him wherever it takes next year. You know.
Well, once again, we're saying KTM have made the right decision because look what he's doing so far this year. So far it
Yeah,
is the correct decision.
I think from what I've seen in the inside, heard in the inside, it was more that Dennis was the trigger. That Dennis was to come back to Io, but it's like, where's the space, you know?
Yes.
Because in Io they get the Red Bull rookie usually.
Yes.
That's part of the agreement. So there was no space for it was Dennis or Danny.
Dennis or lose
Uh,
Dennis, basically.
yeah, but in this situation, I think there's more pressure on Dennis than there is Danny. You know.
Yeah, because Hogard, it's considered a backwards move, but as I say, I don't believe it is. But
No,
on
I don't
paper,
have it. Having worked with Tech Free, some of the mechanics there are incredible.
yeah,
It's a really, really good atmosphere in that box, which I think will suit Danny as well.
he seems like a
Um,
chill boy, doesn't he?
yeah, he can be quite excitable as well. His English was pretty poor at the start of last year, but it got better.
Yeah. Oh, the
Um,
the chair interviews when he was winning with Aspar, painful.
it was just the same thing. so yeah, no, I think he's in a good team, good environment, and that's sometimes you just need that as well, just to click with the head.
Yeah.
Um, so no, fingers crossed for him.
Yeah. So on to from championship leader to two riders who I wanted to mention because they both achieved their highest finishes ever, which were David Salvador for CIP and Mario Aggi for Honda Team Asia.
Mm-hmm.
What a place to do it! Salvador, for the record, was seventh, and Mario was 12th.
Wow. Yeah, no, it's like I say, for me, I see something special in the overseas. Sometimes you get some riders that just click. Um, because we don't go there often,
Yes.
the levels of grip, the asphalt used are different to Europe. They all play a part. I mean, okay, Arbolino, I think, will be strong this year in Moto 2, but for me last year, he was an example at the start of the year and the end of the year, he was strong. But in Europe, he couldn't bring it together. I remember the likes of Agata in Moto 2 or Hafish Sirin. When we went to Asia, Australia, Malaysia, Japan, they were strong.
Yes.
Um,
Historically, yeah,
so,
every time.
yeah, so it's could it be the overseas? I hope not. Um,
Well, that's kind of leading into my second point that I wanted to ask you about Salvador.
mhm,
Obviously, he raced there last year, replacing the injured McPhee on the Husky.
mhm.
Would that have played a part, do you think?
It certainly gave him track knowledge, um, but no, in the end, Austin is a place that's all about rhythm. Yes, like I say, it was the experience, but uh, he had a good weekend. He had a good race,
Mm, yeah,
and like the rest of our conversation, he needs to take that with him to the next races and understand what it takes to race at that speed to achieve that result.
yeah. And seventh was solid. He was in the second group. He was only behind Onchu, and they ended up
Mm.
9 seconds off the win. He was in a group with David Alonso, who also got his highest finish to date, but obviously being a rookie, that sort of doesn't count.
Mm.
And Ryuzi Yamanaka and Jose Antonio Rueda. No, that's
Mm.
good company to keep.
No, that's yeah. Again, take the positives from that and
Mm,
try and match how far they were from the front in the next few races.
yeah.
Keep the momentum.
And Aji, I wanted to give a special mention because that kid is huge. Like,
He's a big boy, yeah.
he's a beefy boy, isn't he? You know what I mean? And on a track with one of the longest straights on the entire calendar, and bringing it home in the points.
No, hats off. But equally, I think as well, you can sometimes use your body to an advantage. I know the slipstream in Moto 3, sometimes they cut the throttle on the straight because they don't want to overtake. So they want to stay behind and whatnot. But with your body weight, you can use it in the faster sections or the flowing sections. So maybe
That's
that's
where I was
where
going.
he was
That
getting his.
the first section, it's left to right, left to right, left to right. He can muscle up like not that many
Exactly.
people can, and that 100% must have played a part, right?
Absolutely, and there's not many tracks we go to that are like it. So, which is a shame because it's obviously something that suits his style.
Yes.
Um, like Rins in MotoGP, he's
Yeah.
always been good at this track. Some riders are like that; they just gel with them.
Mm. So for the results, as we've mentioned, Ivan Otola taking the win. Second was Jaume Masia. Third, probably should have given a little bit more fanfare to him, but whatever. Moto3 is done now. Xavi Artigas was third. Diogo Moreira fourth. Daniel Gardo fifth. Dennis Onchu sixth. David Salvador seventh. Alonso eighth. Yamanaka ninth. Rueda 10th. Then in the last 5 point scoring positions was Kaito Toba, who's again having points on the 658 bike, which is an interesting one. Mario Aggi in 12th. Colin Vire in 13th. Again, points as a rookie. Not bad at all. Scott
Mm-hmm.
Ogden in 14th, and the last point scorer was Riccardo Rossi. Uh, and the rest of the results, Romano Fanati, who it has been announced today actually on Instagram, his girlfriend posted a baby scan, so congratulations to Romano.
Congrats.
17th was David Almanza, 18th was Farioli, 19th was Mino, brought back down to earth with a bump after the Argentina heroics. 20th was Tayo Furusato, and last was Ana Carrasco in 21st. Nepa, Munoz, Sasaki, Buttel, Asman, and Suzuki did not finish. And Josh Watley pulled a Jake Dixon and crashed on the warm up lap. Did not get out for the start of the race. So Moto3, pretty good in my opinion. So we go on
Yeah,
to
it
Moto2.
was
Oh,
entertaining.
God. Yeah, it was entertaining. 100%. So on to Moto2. And as previously mentioned, I want to start before the race. Jake Dixon and his warm up crash. Bit of a silly goose move, in my opinion. Not what you should be doing if you were qualifying in the first couple of rows. Did not know
No,
what happened, according to him, when he came in the pit box. What did you make of it?
I mean, yeah, I was a bit shocked when I got back in the box and had seen he'd gone down already before the race start. Listening to the onboard replay, sounds like the RPMs went up. I've not
Went
actually
down.
spoken. Yeah, I've not actually spoken to him yet. I still was with him for 2 years with Petronas, so I know the boy really well and we've remained good friends.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
But
I don't think I would have spoken to him after that for a while either, to be fair.
no, he's the sort of person who needs to go back, reset. But a warm up lap to some extent, you're still getting your race head on. So you've gone through these corners hundreds of times over the weekend that sometimes you just don't even think about stuff.
Yes.
So which shouldn't be an excuse, but at the same time, I don't know. It's like writing on a piece of paper. You don't think how you're holding a pen.
Yeah.
It's just a bit sort of habitual and stuff. So
Like,
uh,
there's no excuse. You're right. Like, first and foremost, there is no excuse. You shouldn't be throwing it up the road before the race has even started. It's not
no,
unheard of, and weirdly, it happened twice this weekend. Like,
two Brits.
yeah, great fun, real representation there. But like, if you want to be where you believe you should be, and for Dixon, that is, he believes he should be battling for this World Championship.
Mm-hmm.
You absolutely cannot be making mistakes like that.
No, they're rookie mistakes,
Yeah,
and possibly something that should be done at world level. But I've seen what he's put on social media. He's literally just going to dust himself off and get back on it at Jerez. I believe he can be strong there.
Yeah, a bit of a
But
knee-jerk reaction on his social media. I think looking back at it now at this point, I think he might regret it.
yes, possibly. But he's confident in himself, so he
Oh yeah,
won't regret it, and he's just going to move on.
yeah,
He's just going to move on.
like like he's given himself a bit of an issue. That's a good, possibly 16 points, maybe 20, but I can't see him have stuck in with Arbolino and Pedro at this track.
No, those two were for me in a different level. I think
But
he, like you say, he could have been up there third, fourth, fifth, valuable points. But
it's
yeah, you
just
can't
it's
change
the
the
manner.
past.
Yeah, it's the manner, and like it's like
I saw a lot of people talking about what he was saying on the grid. I didn't see that. Like I said, I don't
no, me
see or hear
neither.
any of that.
Well, I believe he was talking to BT Sport, and I'm Will Feed, so I didn't see that either.
Right,
So
but
no idea what he said.
but but yeah, there's no excuse for it. He knows that, and he's just going to make sure. Even like any crash, you've got to know why you've done it and make sure it doesn't even happen in a session or in a race.
Yes.
In a session, it loses valuable time. In a race, it's points.
Yeah, and that's kind of worrying. But is it like it was the adrenaline possibly where he came in and said, "I don't know what happened."
Yeah, I think that was panic,
Digesting it now.
embarrassment. Yeah, panic, embarrassment, adrenaline, all of that before a race doesn't often happen. What do you say?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
yeah, these things happen.
Yep. Dust yourself
No
off, go to
excuses.
Jerez, and right the wrong, I guess. It's the only thing
Exactly.
he can do.
Exactly.
Speaking of the aforementioned two who he probably wouldn't have stuck with, Pedro Costa and Tony Arbolino, they put on
What
an
a
absolute clinic.
yeah,
Like,
sublime.
like neither of them made a mistake like that well, not a mistake that would be any consequence then, shall we say.
Well, Pedro on lap was it 3 or 4 went wide at 12, and he dropped from second to fourth or fifth.
Yeah, but was that his fault, or was that the famous gearbox false neutral issue?
No, that was an issue for some people. I'd have to look at the data to tell you if it was. I probably overshooting. The wind changed direction on Sunday, so you had a bit of tailwind, and obviously we're slipstream as well.
Have you seen the onboard?
The onboard video, no.
When you get a chance, have a listen.
Oh, yes, no, I did, and it showed neutral. No, he did
Yeah.
because you can hear the RPM.
Yes,
No,
that's
he
what it
got.
was. Because like he selected
No,
neutral
he did
and
get
the
a false
grind,
neutral.
and that's where I thought that wasn't actually Pedro's fault. You know, like you've got to
No, no,
say when he does things fairly. I'm people say I'm overly harsh on Pedro,
right.
but I don't believe that's the case. Like, I just don't think we should be treating a 19-year-old kid as the next god just yet. You know, give him a bit of time to develop and become the complete
Problem is
rider.
that's the media. You know, like you've. When was the last time a rookie won a championship in their first year? And was it Caparossi or something? You
Yeah,
know,
and the Pedro
so
missed it by a day, didn't he? If I remember.
exactly. So that's something to talk about. I mean, I remember last year when he came into the Moto 2, I have never seen so many cameras around. And even like Augusto theoretically was the number one rider. We were going around the world, but people only wanted pictures with Pedro. The TVs were only there for Pedro, and Augusto. You could see Augusto was affected by it.
Mm.
So,
Well, how could you not be? You know, your rookie teammate coming in and
yeah.
is the best thing since sliced bread.
But the thing is that what backed it up is that he jumped on the Moto 2 bike, and he was the fastest in the official test.
Yeah, that didn't help, did it?
So it's understandable why all the cameras were on him.
Yeah.
Um,
My
but
feel was he always had that race in the bag. He he seemed to have extra, whereas Arbolino was limited by what he could do, should we say?
well, from the conversation I had with Pedro after the race was that he actually said when he got to the front on a couple of occasions, he goes, he didn't feel he could manage the race being in front. He felt without in a way it was more like if he didn't have a reference,
Yeah,
he wouldn't know where to be. So, but on the same side, you could see he was playing with Arbolino because I
because
think
he could.
Arbolino's he could, but I think it was because Arbolino's bike was geared really short. So
Yeah.
our bikes were geared a little longer, I think. So on the straight, Pedro was rolling off. Pedro was rolling off to 65% on the straight, so he didn't overtake him.
Yes.
But in the braking zones, he'd be on the left, he'd be on the right, the inside, the outside. You know, so he was almost trying to force Tony to make the mistake. Which from an 18-year-old is damn smart.
Mm.
Like
You
for
shouldn't
a guy that,
also. Sorry, just the problem with me, you'll learn, is that I just sort of jump in and blurt out because I'll forget it otherwise.
no swear.
But Arbolino, I think, should be given a huge amount of credit also in this for not making the mistake that Pedro was hounding him into.
100%. I mean, the conditions were different. If you look, okay, actually, the most credit is that Sasaki crashed out of the Moto3 race in the lead. Bagnaia crashed out of the GP race in the lead or fighting for the lead. You know, it's a difficult place to be.
Yeah.
The track is difficult. The cracks, the bumps, the changing asphalts. It's a challenging circuit. So what those two were doing, whether it was in front or behind or whatever, was impressive.
And to be nigh on perfect. Like, Pedro wouldn't have gone by without that false neutral, if we're honest. Or, well, we
No.
can't say that for sure, but I mean, pretty much from the way they conducted themselves.
I'm sure. Look, seeing the onboard video with the gears, yeah, I'm sure he had it. That corner is a first gear corner, and with these road gearboxes, you've got to skip through neutral. And so there, turn one a few times, people had it 11 onto the back straight, and turn 15.
No, and this is an issue that's not gone away with the Moto2 bikes at this point. It's better. It's not gone away.
It's a hell of a lot better than it was with the Hondas, but unfortunately, it's not Stern Pro's fault. But basically, they are restricted on costs of these engines. You know, so by changing the gearbox, that's added cost. And stuff like that. So I understand the reason for doing it, and they or Triumph have to do the testing because there is a possibility to do it. have neutral at the bottom, but potentially next year. But we just got to keep fingers crossed.
Yeah, because they've upped the RPM. They clearly tried to make it more racy, so to speak.
Yeah, they've upped the RPM, but I think the bigger thing is more that helps to stop the bikes being on the limiter for so long at certain tracks. For instance, Portimao, I remember Pedro's on the limiter for about 1.2 seconds into the first corner.
Bloody hell.
But the problem is you can't give it any different because it affects the rest of the track because they changed the gearing the year last year with a longer first.
Yeah.
So
Jorge Navarro was the main culprit of that, wasn't he? To the point where he was fined, I believe, by Exterm Pro for the amount he over-revved the engine. I think he was fined €9,000 for it.
Yeah, that's the price of a new engine, basically.
Oh, there we are then.
But yeah, the higher RPM is more just to protect the engine and stop the over revving, but it's got a different compression and it's got more torque. So I think that's the bigger thing that is affecting people. And we're having to change all of our engine brakes and stuff because it's changed the torque characteristics.
Yeah, because like from an outside point of view, it's like just from my perspective, not having to do anything with it. It's like they're saying, go race harder. But that's obviously not the case.
No, it's a whole combination of things with engine, tires, etc. But no, ultimately, when the riders jumped on with this new engine, they felt it was different, but not a big difference. It's just maybe given us a slightly bigger window for us to gear the bikes differently.
Yeah.
Well,
that can only be a good thing, I guess, is a bigger window, but...
Well, exactly. I'd say that's really all it is. But the thing is, it's good testing for Triumph because this is something that could go into the road bike,
Yeah, it's like you're not going to blow up your Daytona 765 doing 50 on the M4, are you?
Exactly. Even if you hold it in first gear.
Yeah.
So that's where I see that.
It's good, guys. It's like going back to the Pedro-Tony battle just quickly.
Yeah.
Harbolino is the championship leader going into the European rounds.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he can maintain this?
I hope so. I hope from a riding perspective, I hope so. I have a question mark though because of how he raced last year. I think we said earlier he was strong in the overseas last year, both at the start and at the end.
Yes.
But when we were in Europe, he just lost his way, lost his rhythm.
Mm.
I think he clashed with his teammate, didn't he, and knocked Sam out of a race somewhere.
Yes.
He just had, there was no rhythm for him, let's say.
Will
let's hope
VDS for a second season make a difference, do you think?
Oh, 100%. I mean, Lucio, his crew chief, who I was with in Intact, such a good crew chief, one that can really get close with the rider, relate with the rider, and give them full of confidence. They've got the data now from last year. They know what they did wrong if they went wrong. Arbolino knows what to do. He's got another year under his belt.
Was he with Sam before that?
Who?
Arbolino's crew chief. Was he with Lowe's before
that? He was with Lowe's in the World Supersport and won the championship with Lowe's.
Yeah.
Lucio Nakis.
One of my friends absolutely raves about him.
He's a legend. He's a real top guy. And like I said, I was with him when he came to this paddock. He came over with Sam when it was Speed Up, but then Speed Up stayed at one bike. So there were two bikes, and then they went down to one bike, but they said, no, we're keeping our crew chief. So Lucio had to look for a job. He got with Intact with me, with Cortese. And then he went to the American team with Roberts, and obviously got Roberts on the podium and going
Yes.
fast. Cortese was on the podium going fast, and then got to VDS.
Yeah, because I just bring it up because he'll listen to this, and like if I was to search the group chat, his name would come up so much where he's just raving about how good he is constantly, and he's gonna
Yeah,
listen to this and he's gonna be like, "Yep, that's me."
told you so.
Yeah, told you.
Yeah, no, he's a good guy.
So will that be the key then for Tony to make it better in Europe this year?
100%. 100%. He's just got to be consistent. I keep saying it. Consistency is everything.
But you're not wrong. That's the thing. You can say it as many times as you need to. You know what I mean? It's never going to change the fact that it's right. Like,
well, exactly, and it's so frustrating because we just drill it into the riders so much, and sometimes they don't listen to you. You just think, oh god.
yeah.
No, I think he'll have a better season this year in Europe.
He seems different, like as in himself. Like his confidence seems to have gone up a notch. He was always confident, but it seems to have
Yeah.
gone up a notch this year. The self
Well,
belief.
again, I've not seen so much on the TV or interviews or anything like this. When I see him in the paddock, actually, he's a lot more friendly, calm. He used to be quite excitable.
Oh, his podium interviews. I lived for those in Moto3. Good feelings.
Yeah. So no, I believe he will be stronger this year, and I think, I think he and Pedro will be strong. I'm surprised by Lopez the way he finished. I thought Lopez would be closer this year.
Yes, I haven't written it down actually, but I did want to just mention it. Like you just reminded me. Lopez's suit was too tight on the right arm, and it caused a dead arm, like to the point where he couldn't hold on to the bike.
It's possible Albert said the same thing.
Really?
Yeah. So basically, Albert, he goes, the problem is that in COTA, like, usually you can relax on the straight, but where there's so many bumps, usually you just sort of hold the throttle but not pull it, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, you just sort of rest your hand almost.
But because it's so bumpy and you're coming on and off the tank, you've got to hold the handlebars. So this makes you're I know, tightening underneath your armpit, and you're really staying tucked in, and going from left to right on the bike so much in the first and second sector. Yeah, maybe it had something to do with it, but
because he actually put an Instagram post about it.
Interesting.
So I thought that was quite ballsy to put it out there in public like that.
I'm not sure who is
his suit sponsor.
Yeah, well, Augusto had no issues last year, but at the end of the day, and I've seen it with all the suits, it's rider preference. It's how the riders want their suits tailored to them, and Revit will do whatever it takes to please the riders. So it's how it was made for Lopez this winter.
Yep, and didn't go well. I was about to move on to Bo Bensnyder before that, so good for Bo, I say.
Incredible. Obviously, I think we all saw online that he lost his granddad the day before.
Yes.
That
was his emotional celebration. And we were all sort of wondering, weren't we? Like, like this must mean that happened? Much to him. Like, this isn't a normal reaction. Like,
and to race with that much pressure, or it's added pressure. Like you're grieving, but you've still got a job at hand to do. And similar to what we're saying with Ortola, like Bo had a terrible first. I think he came back down in 14th or something.
Yeah, he was actually outside the points.
There you go. And I think there was something in him when he came past Albert, coming to the top 10. I thought, okay, Albert was the same pace at the time. I thought, oh, let's stick with Bo. But Bo he got past Albert, and then 2 corners later got past Vietti, and I just thought, he's in a race of his own. And I see him there, he was sort of 5th or 6th on the last lap. And it wasn't until I looked up at the TV to see how far Albert off the front, that Bo was on the podium. And I was super stoked from having. I crew chiefed him in 2018 when he came up to Moto 2.
Yeah.
So I know the guy very well, know how much his family means to him. And yeah, it's been a long time coming, this podium.
Yes, it has. Very much
It.
so. I hate to say it though, which is what I'm going to say now.
Mm.
Is the rule not if you touch the green on the last lap, you get demoted?
Yes, did he touch the green?
Him and Alcoba were in the next county over at the final corner. They were past the green.
Crikey.
I absolutely do not want to take this from Bo in any way. I mean, but should that not mean that Salat should have been on the podium, as he was the first rider after Arbolino, I think, to cross the line?
By the rules, yes. But this is where the FIM have to be consistent, you know.
Yeah, because it's black and white. Like, this is what we were saying about the Stewards. It's black and white. You touch the green, you're demoted a position.
Mm.
The only thing I can think is they were pushed.
Yeah, because the Canet tried to take
Aldiger.
Aldiger, that was it. In the last one, I saw Bo go up the inside.
There's a photo out there, like looking at the main straight. I'm not kidding you. If this is the track, Bo is there, Alcoba is there.
So yeah, I mean, unless they were forced there,
very potentially.
Yeah, then that could come into it. But again, I've not seen the replay after the race. At that point, the riders have come in, and I'm doing the debrief, so I haven't watched anything back. But
well,
this is where the stewards have to be. Okay.
So
but then I see a photo. I see a photo came out. I think it was Simon Patterson and of Fabio in the sprint race had crashed on a yellow flag. And theoretically,
it wasn't Fabio on the picture. It was, I want to say Martin. It was from Fabio's viewpoint behind, like it was Fabio's rear camera.
So,
and everybody was mistaken.
That rider.
Yeah.
Okay, but surely that rider that's crashed on the yellow flag also needs to be.
Yeah, well, that was the point he was making, and everybody like straight up, I don't like Simon Patterson. I openly admit this. But on this occasion, people were quite unfairly attacking him, saying, "Why are you trying to get Fabio a penalty? This and the other." But the view was from Fabio's bike, like the rear-facing camera. And he didn't even bother correcting anyone. And I was thinking, if there's one time you need to be the mouthy guy you are, this is it.
Yeah.
But like by the letter of the law, should 100% have been a punishment.
So this is where they've got so many cameras around the track. FIM race direction just need to be. Don't want to take anything away from anyone, especially Bo.
No.
But it just brings up arguments later in the season because people say, but this rider did this and you didn't give it, sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, that was my fear is, we've seen riders demoted for quite literally touching the green with, a micron of their tyre. And then to go and do that, it does lead me into the next point, which I've written down, final laps battle, but it was a bit more than a battle in my opinion. It was all out war.
I mean, it goes back down to what we were saying with the Moto 3 incident with Nepa, that if there's contact, where's the limit,
But because Canet was giving Firmin quite a few love taps throughout the course of the lap. I was very surprised at Firmin, first and foremost, having crashed in not FP3 anymore, in P3.
I still call it FP3.
Yeah, so do I, but it's officially not now. Crashed coming out of the first corner, going down the hill.
Yes.
Actually took off the top of one of his fingers. His glove wore right through. Took off.
Saw that, yeah.
Like the whole finger. To then come back and be battling for the podium after doing that,
Adrenaline again, your inner demon just
big
comes out.
respect to him. Like he was, and like I thought with the injury that he had, he was going to fade. You know, the pain was going to take over, but it just didn't. Like first and foremost, fair play to him, but
Yeah, well,
Canet
absolutely.
was absolutely not having the young gun beat him this race. But as you'll see in the results in a bit, Furman did beat him. So
Fair play to him.
yeah, I thought some of what Canet did was over the line. I must say, it almost looked,
He's a rider that scares me. If he's behind you,
yeah,
he's one that I'm scared of.
yeah, like he almost looked like he was not trying to make the corner in certain ways that a Moto2 rider should, shall we say, if I'm putting it lightly.
But then is he trying to force Furman to make mistakes? Is he panicking? The thing with COTA as well, out of all the tracks you can see it the most is if you muck up one corner, you muck up the next, you muck up the next.
Yeah,
So
big flow track. Yeah.
you've really got to be precise there.
I agree, but it didn't look like Canet was hunting apexes. He was hunting a speed up.
Okay.
Like he hit him going through, you know, the stadium complex.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got the right and then the left.
Yeah.
He hit him on the first right, the second right, and the left. Like that's a bit much.
Yeah. And, this is where race direction needs to get involved because that could be dangerous.
Yeah, like once rubbing his racing, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
But to excessively do what he did, I was
Yeah.
quite alarmed by that. I don't know whether it was whether Furman had done something to him because it seemed personal. Like it genuinely seemed like Canet lost his head.
I need to watch it again.
Yeah. Well, when you watch it, Canet is not trying to make the corner.
Okay.
Straight up, it's very
I'm going to watch it tomorrow. It'll be on my list of to-dos tomorrow.
Yeah, they replayed it after the race.
Right.
And he just was not trying to make that corner.
Blimey. Okay.
Before I go into the results in Moto2, I just wanted to get your thoughts on the weekend as well as a whole with you and Albert. So,
well,
say as much or as little as you want.
Poor our weekend. Not as we expected. We were trying to aim for consistency this weekend, and when I say consistency, it's more within the laps and being close to his times within sectors. But that didn't quite click until qualifying, which was quite frustrating. COTA's a tricky track, so we're lucky that we've got a lot of data to look back at to find techniques to riding and stuff. And we're also trying to change Albert's style a bit this year. He's still quite Moto3, sort of turns in quite quick, carries a lot of corner speed. Now with these new tyres, especially with this engine, you've got to sort of V them off a bit more. You can afford to brake 3, 4, 5 meters later, because that then encourages you to hold the brake a bit longer, which means the bike is not got as much lean angle. So we're trying to teach him that, and for him to ride smoother, more consistent, etc. As for the race, we're frustrated that he couldn't get past Vietti. He was sort of hunting him down, sort of 9th, 10th lap, sort of half a second quicker. But then he just couldn't he couldn't overtake. So that's when he came in. He did say about the arm pump, but unfortunately, or the circulation, sorry. But unfortunately, then on the last penultimate lap was Gomez overtook him, and on the last lap, Chandra overtook him. So we ended up finishing 12th.
Yes.
However, if I look at the positives, last year he finished 11th, but was 33 seconds off. This year was 12th and only 14 seconds.
Yep, 14.001 off. I'm just looking at this.
So he's nearly 20 seconds quicker, but that goes to show how close Moto2 is this year.
Yes.
Everyone has stepped up a level. So that's actually great to see from a racing perspective. And you're seeing more battles on track than I can remember in the past.
Yes, 100% yes.
So when we were in Jerez testing, we were third overall in the tests. So let's see if we can get some of that back. He's gone home this weekend. He's had 5 weeks away. So let's see if that can clear the head and reset himself. Reflect on what he's done, what we've said.
Sometimes that's all the rider needs, isn't it? That's the thing. It's like some need an absolute boot, and then others just need to go on for a bit. I guess it's funny how a rider works, isn't it?
It really is. I remember with Dixon's when I was with him. If we had 3 weeks away in the COVID year, the third week he'd suffer quite a bit. If he went home, it was like his reset. For Augusto was the same last year. Like when we did all the overseas, he always went home. Just did, even if it was 2 days of training, 2 days of his normal diet, it was the biggest reset we saw from him. So hopefully for Albert it's the same. He took a week holiday, stayed out in the Americas between Argentina and Austin. So let's see if this resets him, and hopefully we can get closer to the front in Jerez.
Yeah, I fingers crossed, because I have it on record that I think he's going to win the Moto2 title, so I need to be right. Otherwise, people might not believe me with what I've said.
I hope it's his team. Well, yeah, of course, I'd love to win the title with him, but I think Pedro's the one this year that's going to be the one in the team doing the results. But I do believe it's Albert's third year. He can get some podiums this year.
Oh, 100%.
We had this conversation before recording, but my opinion of Moto2 is a 3 to 4 year rule.
And wait till you hear this. It actually makes so much sense. It's actually annoying.
If you look at the riders that have won championships, Marini, Zarco, Marquez, Remy, Augusto, all of them didn't get their first podiums until like their third, on average, and their third year. And then it was their fourth year that they really started to fight for a title. Okay, some guys were their fifth year. But the point is that Moto2 is not an easy class. You're not typically a rider that can come in and just, boom, go. Other than some exceptions.
Yeah, but it's an exception, not a rule, which is why it's so special.
Exactly. Moto2, with everyone more or less on the same bike, it's really down to the rider. And like Ben Snyder this weekend, it's his fifth season, and he's managed to get a podium. So Augusto last year was his fifth season in Moto2 and got the title. Remy was his sixth year. It's about experience and knowledge of how to ride a bike at the fastest pace consistently. Again, I think I'm going to be known as Mr. Consistent after this.
Yep. That's what I'm going to start calling you, don't worry.
And then so if Albert can get a couple of podiums this year and understand how to be riding in the top five, I think that will click for him, and it could potentially mean he's a title contender next year.
Because it makes so much sense that it annoys me that I didn't think of it, to be honest. But like, especially in Moto2, it seems as soon as a rider gets one podium, they kick on so much compared to other classes.
Yeah, I think, but that's because it comes down to the riding. It's Moto3. The weekend is almost for nothing. If you qualify in the front 5 or 6 rows, you're in a chance to be on the podium.
That's it.
You
like
know?
you could. I'm not saying Moto3 don't earn a podium. Absolutely not. But you could almost find yourself on the podium in Moto3 if you're in the front group. You can't find yourself on the podium in Moto2 or MotoGP.
No, MotoGP on a factory bike, for sure, you've got a better advantage. On a Ducati, you've got a better advantage. But in Moto2, it really is down to the rider. So you get a podium and you understand what it takes to ride the bike at the pace at the front.
Mm.
It's all about picking up the throttle at the right time, braking at the right time, not over braking yourself, building a rhythm, and not just a rhythm in the race, but then a rhythm from to the next race, to the next race, to the next race. And like I keep saying, taking what you've learned and applying that, picking up the bike, using a new tyre, how to manage the tyre at the end of the race. Although we've got electronics, we've got far less than MotoGP.
Yeah. Not even
Our
TC is there.
we don't have traction control.
Like that's bad. Like, you know what I mean? Like that.
I think it's a good thing because it teaches a rider how to manage the throttle.
Yeah, not in that as in like when you consider that like the amount of electronics you have to then deal with when you go to MotoGP, you are basically starting from zero, innit? I think that's the only disadvantage.
I don't know. I still think it teaches you the philosophy that you've got 3 maps to choose from, both with the throttle and an engine brake.
Yes.
So, of course, we spec these and configure these before the practice and the races, but the rider then knows he's got 3 maps to choose from. When they then jump on a MotoGP bike, they already know how to manage the buttons.
Yes.
And stuff like this, so they know what it feels like when a tire drops.
Yeah, like Moto2 absolutely teaches you the basics, doesn't it? Like the essentials.
Exactly.
But MotoGP is just a whole different ball. It's like a spaceship on the front of those bikes at the minute. Like,
no, it really is.
Like ride-out devices, like whole shot devices, everything, and you're just there and you're thinking, where does it end? Because like at some point, someone's going to come up from Moto2 and the bewilderment it must be. Like, I imagine Augusto, when he first hopped on that gas, didn't know his arse from his elbow.
He goes to me, he goes, Matt, you would love the electronics on these bikes. You can configure them corner by corner. We can't. We can do it per gear, but not per corner.
Yeah. Because isn't Aprilia's ride height device GPS assisted?
No, they're not allowed GPSs.
There's something electronic in Aprilia's that the others don't have, I believe.
Okay, unless that's been brought out this year, then
not last year,
sure.
Because it was why. Do you remember at Sachsenring when Vinales' ride height device failed? Apparently, it was to do
I thought that was the hydraulics. The hydraulic system failed.
Yeah, that's it. But apparently that can also be GPS program corner by corner or something.
No, the way that MotoGP's electronics work done by the meters of the track. So you've got like before a weekend, the engineers will input the number of meters of the straight, followed by then the number of meters of corner 1, then the number of meters of the next straight, then the number of meters from corner 2, so on and so forth for the whole track. So when the front and rear wheel speeds cover those meters, that's what helps activate the electronics. So maybe there was a rider, a non-rider activated system, but I'm sure the hydraulic system failed, which is why the bike was sitting.
Yeah, you are right.
low.
Like it did the hydraulics did fail.
Yeah,
but I was under the impression that the whole system was GPS assisted. But apparently,
no, they don't have GPS. I'm
okay.
sure they don't have GPS.
Okay. Like I didn't know. That's why I asked.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that's they don't have GPSs.
Okay, cool.
So
yes, on the weekend could be better. I think is the outtake from that.
yeah. Let's take what we've learned, or Albert takes what he's learned, and we go again in Jerez.
I think he'll be better.
I feel exactly. I feel that going back to Europe, I think for Albert will be better for him. Especially the next few weeks. It's until May. It's 1 week on, 1 week off. I think for the whole paddock, that's going to be better.
Yes, especially the amount of races this year. Yes,
the back-to-back races or the triples are just
Draining.
Hard work. Yeah, draining,
That's the way I'd put it.
exhausting.
Like you see at the end of like the three triple headers, you see everybody's like mood in the paddock. You can even see it like visibly. Their shoulders are more slumped, and you're just like
Yeah,
you're knackered, and quite rightly.
yeah, it's difficult. Yeah, hopefully the next three races we can get our feet on the ground and start progressing.
I'm I don't want to say confident in a confident way, but based on what we saw at the test for Jerez,
Mm.
I'm expecting Albert to at least be around the podium area, sniffing around the podium. Do you think that's
Mm. But then I would say that we've also got riders now that have built up confidence in the first three races.
yes?
Um, so they're going to play a part. And I think also testing is very different to a GP weekend.
Yes.
So
The
my
pace
hope,
is there at least. We know that.
yeah, and we've got data. We've seen how he rides and stuff. So for me, I'd like to say to fight for top five.
I think
Um,
that's a realistic goal, yeah. 100%
yeah,
right.
I'd like to say that, but
That's the bare minimum where an IO2 Moto 2 rider should be fighting.
exactly,
So,
exactly. So
yes.
we've just got to focus on our points that we've been doing with him the last weekend or two. And at the end of the day, and even Aki said to him, we're not looking short term. We want sort of medium to long term improvement. So even if we're not fighting for the podium next weekend or the weekend after, we want to set in stone the way we work, the way we approach a weekend, and progress that way.
Yeah, and, Aki knows where he's on about, doesn't he? So, when he
Yeah,
talks, you listen.
exactly.
So for the Moto 2 positions, as said before, first two were Pedro Costa, Tony Arbolino. Bo Ben Snyder was third. Jeremy Alcoba and Philip Salach were fourth and fifth for Grassini. Great result for both of those. Sixth was Firmin Aldeguer. Seventh was Alonso Lopez. Again, a nice double for Boscostero. Eighth was Aaron Canet. Ninth was Celestino Vietti after qualifying on pole. Probably will be disappointed with that. 10th was Manu Gonzalez. 11th, Tom Chantra. As mentioned, Albert was 12th. 13th was Sam Lowes. 14th was Dennis Fodger, getting 2 points on his rookie debut on Moto 2 in COTA. I think that's bloody impressive, to be honest. Like, when I actually stop and think about it. And
Yeah, that's not
15th
bad.
was the still quite injured Ayagura. Like, still very
That's
injured
also
Ayagura.
impressive.
Yes.
Yeah, that's quite impressive as well.
Like, when someone's this described as a severe break in the MotoGP paddock, you know it's a bad break.
Well, I heard with Ogura was it was related to the crash of Jake Dixon, so his hand had to be fixed for 3 weeks, I think it was. So he couldn't move it because it had broken like all of the bones and the tendons in his wrist up to his elbow.
Oof.
What I heard from his mechanic. So if that's the case, and seeing how long it took for Jake to recover, 15th is a very solid position.
Yeah.
I'd be happy with that.
Yeah. Considering he could possibly have missed the first three races, I think he was right to sit out the Argentina race. There was no point going for it in the wet. I'm
No.
absolutely wrecking your season. But to bring home a point where others around him fell, I consider that job well done for Agura.
Yep.
And
Definitely hats off.
16th was Joe Roberts. 17th was Zonta van den Hurberg. 18th was Sean Dillon Kelly. I expected more from Sean at home. I'm not going to say I'm disappointed, but I did think if there's going to be any way he's going to up his game slightly, it'd be at home. But unfortunately, not for him. Uh, Rory Skinner was 19th, a nice American racing duo there. 20th was Borja Gomez. 21st was the returning Izan Guevara. Still very, very unfit and sporting a gnarly scar now on his forearm from the operation he's had. 22nd was David Sanchez, and 23rd was Soichiro Minamoto. Of the riders who didn't finish, Sergio Garcia, Marcos Ramirez, Barry Baltas, Lorenzo Dalla Porta, and Lucas Tulovic. And as mentioned, Jake Dixon did not start the race as he crashed out on the warm-up lap. Moto2 was good. I enjoyed Moto2, but on to MotoGP. And the Saturday, should we start with Pecco? Because I'll just go into two parts. Actually, I've written Pecco later, but we might as well just hit him all. Perfect on Saturday, allergic to Sunday again. What's wrong with him? Like, it's all well and good winning the sprints, but if you're going to throw it away in the main race, what's the point of doing well in the sprints?
Yeah, good question. Especially when you don't get as many points in the sprints.
Yeah, you're not going to win a championship by winning the sprints only. Simple.
No, but for me, I mean, I don't know what they're testing or doing, but sprints they're so short, so you can almost gather the same amount of information in a session. Races are longer, so after, let's say, 2/3 distance, not in no man's land, but the bike behaves differently.
Yes.
So, and if you look back at last year, look how many times he and other factory riders crashed at the start of the season when they're starting to get to know their bikes and the new packages and stuff like this. So there could be that, and again, that's no excuse. In the end, there's no excuse to crashing, really. The aim is to finish the race. But like I said, Sunday brought different weather.
Yes. Which I think people are overlooking.
Yeah, and it does change things with this tailwind. Although it's 5 kilometres, it changes your braking reference mark that you've used all weekend by about 4 or 5 metres.
Yeah, it's not a significant amount, is it?
It's not, but when you're braking from 200 miles an hour or 150 mile an hour, it does make a difference. So, yeah, I don't know. And what we saw over the weekend, especially on the Sunday with the higher temperatures, was that MotoGP were losing the front of their bikes, while Moto2, Moto3 were losing the rear of their bikes.
Yes.
But equally, look how many guys crashed on Sunday.
Yes,
so,
that's it. Like, it showed that it was tricky on Sunday.
Yes, exactly.
100%. However, what I want to mention was what Pecco said after. Have you seen what he said?
Is this about the bike is too precise and not
too
giving him the
stable? Yeah.
Yeah.
From an engineer's perspective, what do you make of that comment? And how would you go about changing it?
Bike is too stable.
Because that in itself just blows my mind. How can you say a bike is too stable? But then
I think
it makes sense after.
Maybe the way that he means it is too stable is that it means that it allows him to be the bike is so precise every lap that he's then trying to he's got so much feedback from being able to brake later that or brake well and with stability that he thinks, maybe I can push the limit a bit more. So the window of being on the limit is smaller when the bike is so stable. Maybe he's just wanting to open that window a little bit so he can get more feedback of when the bike is on the limit.
Okay.
So where then he says that he's got to maybe sacrifice 0.1, that will be because that's giving him a bit more feeling and feedback.
But then that's where I'm confused with the comment. Because stability does not equal feedback. And that kind of goes against everything that you would think.
You tell a racer to go slower and they'll go faster, doesn't compute with them either. And it is always the case. You tell a rider to brake earlier or open the throttle slower, they cannot compute that will make them go faster.
Yeah.
So it's difficult, yeah, to be.
I just wanted to get your perspective on it because, like without, like I sort of know what's going on, but I haven't got a clue compared to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean that's the way I'd interpret it. That he's almost the bike is so. Yes, the bike is perfect, but it's almost too good that it's, as I say, it's closed the window of the limit. Whereas he wants to open that a bit more. He wants to get more feedback. Like we've made changes with riders before, where it's theoretically it's the right direction to go. If for let's say grip, but actually the rider wants to take grip away so he can get the bike to spin or to change direction differently or something like this, or to brake differently into a corner. So
Wild.
actually, yeah, it's crazy, but these guys have so much control that they are the way that they can use the brake front and rear with their feet, with their hands, the way they use their body. They're not sitting down on those seats at all. Like
Yes.
if you look at the the top riders, their seats look like they're brand new because they don't sit down.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. There was
compared to the guys slower.
there was a thing before I saw where some, I don't know who it was, but it was some like high up guy was explaining how Mark Marquez pushes the bike down,
Yeah,
and it's so counterintuitive, isn't it?
it really is. But that's what makes these guys the top level, because they're doing things you think don't work but actually do.
Mm.
Um, so that's where I think Banyai's comment is the bike is not giving him enough feedback, or it needs to give him more warnings. Let's say.
Yeah, that, now that would make more sense if he said that. Like, but the way he worded it
Yeah,
was, it
I
was a
think
very
he needs.
oxymoronic. Like,
Yeah, I think that from what it means is that he needs to get more warnings from the bike so he knows where the limits are.
makes sense because
Yeah,
two races now where he, both times he doesn't seem to know what's happened. Like Argentina, you
yeah,
could sort of forgive him and say the conditions were awful. Like, it was hard to find the limit there. Fair enough. But here, and it was less than the sprint race distance when he crashed.
yeah.
I don't believe he should have been going down there.
But then equally, you'd have had more fuel.
Yeah, that is also true. And also, he was
Uh,
30 centimetres offline, I believe they said.
yeah,
That's
so
all it
he's
takes, you know?
and exactly. It's a dirty part of the track, or if you're 30 centimeters off, you've got to take 1-2 degrees more banking to pull it back, and then that's just enough to go over the edge.
Yeah, but it does kind of rub it out that he says it was 100% not my fault. You were offline, so kind of was, Chief.
Yeah, no. The riders say things that that they think they're right, but half the time they're not.
Yeah, so got to tell yourself, I think, sometimes to keep the confidence up.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, Going into a confidence man, I want to talk about Maverick Vinales and both of his bad starts. Um, this must frustrate you from an engineering standpoint because
Yeah, I mean,
the
I'm
other
not so.
Aprilias all ripped the starts. It must be
Yeah,
painful.
maybe they're saving it for somewhere else on the track. Um, because last year they're good, but then for me, Maverick has never been a good starter. Also with the Yamaha was the
Yeah,
same.
but he could get the Yamaha off the line and go. Whereas
Yeah,
now he's able to maintain his position on the Aprilia tipping into the first corner, but he can't get it off the initial bite.
yeah, no, but then yeah, that's for me something down to the engineers, because at the end of the day, the rider, you press the button for launch control, and you just hold the okay. On the MotoGP bike, you've got to load the front, load the rear, launch control, but you've literally got to hold the throttle and then just release the clutch. That theoretically is all they should do.
So how
Um,
is it not working off the line for him, but it is for the other Aprilias? Because if it was all
he
Aprilias, I'd say it's an Aprilia problem, but it ain't.
then it's a setting that he wants, that he likes, that just isn't working. Or maybe he's tried Alicia's and it's not working,
It's
or
just
something. I don't
baffles
know.
me. Like
Yeah,
it's the only problem now he has on the Aprilia for me.
yeah. Because if it wasn't for that, I think he'd have been closer to the podium.
Oh, 100%. Like he came home in the top five at the end of the day, and you're thinking, where where were you 10 laps
Yeah,
ago? Like
exactly. So I don't know. I'd be quite frustrated with the engineers, because it's not hard from a rider's point of view for the launch. The only thing from a rider's point of view is to maintain the 100% throttle. But
maybe
that's
that's not
more
what he's doing. Maybe he's not at 100% or something.
because the only thing I can relate it to, but I struggle to believe it on a MotoGP, is that like on Moto 2, we don't have anti-wheelie or anything like that. We've got to configure the launch control that the rider can then manage it. So the idea is the rider holds the throttle full. We can set an RPM limit that it follows, but you want to keep that, give the bike enough power while it's being able to keep the front of the bike on the ground.
Yeah, configure your own
Um,
anti-wheelie.
Literally,
Yeah,
the RPM, it hits the RPM and boom, the front stays down. That's basically the aim. But on MotoGP, I would have thought, although it's more complicated, it's actually easier and less work for the rider to do. The
yeah.
rider,
Well, yeah. In theory, you just sit on the bike and crack the throttle, like,
yeah, yeah.
but
So
something ain't right because now it's compromising him. Whereas you could say he was getting used to the Aprilia before. He had weak spots. He couldn't stop it at fast corners, this, that, and the other. Now he's very well rounded on the Aprilia. It looks like his bike, but he's throwing it all
yeah,
away with the start again.
and yeah, they'll obviously work on that in Jerez, and they've even got a test on the Monday, so that'll be interesting. Uh,
Yeah, but it's so. Oh, Maverick just drives me nuts.
yeah, he's a special guy. He's a
Yeah,
special guy.
he is. Um, of the Sunday, uh, undoubtedly the story of the weekend, if we're honest, was Alex Rins winning. Um, I don't think you're gonna find a person in the world who's sad about this. Everybody's
No,
happy. Like even
from
like you can
many
see in the paddock,
perspectives.
like you could see how popular that win was.
Yeah, I think for the team LCR, was it their 100th podium
Under
for
podium, yeah.
Alex Rins? For Alex Rins, most importantly for Honda to be on the podium again.
Yes.
That's not Marquez. I think is a big thing.
First time since
But
2018.
I would say that COTA, number one, is good with a Honda, and number two is good with Rins.
Yes. This is.
So
I think people are getting carried away saying, "Oh, yeah, clearly the Honda works." This, that, and the other. It still
yeah,
doesn't. But like, absolutely, take nothing away from Rins and Honda. They still had they still had to get the win.
exactly. What the only difference? Obviously, he stayed on the bike because he was the only Honda to finish.
Yeah.
I I think the Honda is still a very difficult bike to ride. I think they are lacking in development, especially in the aero part.
Yes.
Um,
Massively.
and this isn't an excuse for Marquez and his crash in Portugal, but I do see that the aero is starting to become a bit of a safety issue.
Yeah, you could see
Um,
he was dragged. Like, granted, Marquez did lose the front as well,
of course, yeah,
which, of course, you cannot break when you're doing that. You have to stand
yeah,
it up. Fair enough. But he was definitely sucked in by Martins
yeah. I
and
mean
like Ducati especially. Like we know Ducati is the most aero efficient bike and the
I
most
think it's aero efficient and
aero
upsets the
upsetting.
bikes behind.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
it. Like everything that it has, it's designed for maximize itself while minimizing what you can do.
disrupting. Yeah,
And you could see he was sucked in. not making
I
excuses for
think for me,
Marquez.
if you look at Aero in the last few years, you had the incident in Red Bull Ring between Morbidelli and Zarco,
Yes.
which went between Rossi and Vinales, and that was a miracle that no one was injured. You had the incident last year in Mugello where Aleix came past Miguel into turn one on the full gas, and it pushed Miguel onto the mud.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, and that's just coming past someone. And it was in Portugal where I really noticed it off the start finish rate. You go to brake, and the riders just get absolutely sucked in into turn one. Okay, that's from full speed, but I know the aerodynamic effect is sort of above 150 mile an hour when things really start to work. So the point is with the Honda, because their aero is not good on the straights or corners, they're making it up from lunges. You see Mia crashed in the sprint race in Portugal trying to lunge up the inside of Marini.
Fabio.
Use was it Fabio who crashed at turn 5?
Marini into Enea. Portugal sprint.
Who did Mia touch?
Fabio at turn
Ah,
11 and
okay,
was
beg
punished
your
for
pardon.
it, actually.
But the point exactly. But the point is, he has to make it up on the brakes. And there were certain points in the race in COTA where you could see both in the sprint and the main race that Rins was having to do that. But it clicked for Rins that he was able to make up his time in the change of direction area.
Yes, you
So
could see it, like visibly see it.
so he used his head and he said, okay, I can't do it on the brakes, but at this track, I can do it in the change of direction. So I got to give him credit to that. And then obviously it was Bagnaia that went down. But yeah, let's see what happens in Jerez. I think I'd love to see Rins. I'd love to see Honda stay up there, especially for a Japanese manufacturer, you know.
We do need a
And with the
Japanese
history,
manufacturer battling at the front.
yeah, and with the history as well. But let's see. I know there's all this talk about the Calic chassis. I think Rins was on Marquez's chassis.
No, Rins was actually on the previous chassis because he didn't like Marquez's chassis.
There you
He
go then.
rode it at Argentina, hated it, went back to
Yeah.
the one he started the season on.
Okay. Well, fair play. But I believe either the race weekend or certainly on the test there'll be the Calic chassis.
Well,
So
Bradle said
that'll
he
be
didn't test it at Jerez before the race. So that means Bradle tested it before the race.
I was going to say, yeah, I know they tested it.
There's a full reason that there was absolute lockdown at Jerez. And
Yeah.
it's not because there wasn't a Kalex chassis, shall we say.
I also think there's a couple of versions that have come out now.
Yes.
Or in place.
Yeah, apparently the latest one is quite good, so that'll be very interesting to see.
I mean, fingers crossed that it will work, but it's now kind of sad that they've got to get an external company to make the frame or design the frame rather than the actual manufacturer themselves.
See, everybody said I think it's a yes and a no, because I don't see any shame in outside help, especially when the outside help is as good as Kalex. But that being said, it's never been the Honda way. Honda have always been in-house. Honda have proudly always been in-house. They've never outsourced. I mean, even to the point where they would only run shower forks because they were their in-house
Exactly,
forks,
yeah.
So for Honda to do it is the sad thing, I think, as opposed to some if it was Yamaha, we wouldn't bat an eye,
No. But yeah, the history of Honda and stuff like that, it's a shame. I mean, what do you call it? Do you call it a Calex Honda?
Yeah, Hondlex.
Oh, something, yeah. But no. Let's fingers crossed it works, because it was nice to see the Repsol and all the Hondas being competitive again. Certainly against the European manufacturers. It's all well and good they're doing well, but it's a world championship.
Yeah, that's it. You like the Japanese manufacturers do need to up their game 100%.
Yeah.
But you get out what you put in.
Exactly.
and the
Exactly.
Europeans are putting in the most. Like
Yeah.
it's going to come to the point where if Japan don't up their ideas, they'll be left behind. Like Fabio's comments. Oh, this bike haven't changed in 4 years, and everybody is absolutely slating Yamaha for this. Part of me agrees, but the other part of me is thinking, well, why in these 4 years have you not pushed for the changes you want?
I know Yamaha can be quite so. Where was I? Was it Tech V or Petronas when they won the Yamaha? Uh,
Would have been Petronas, wouldn't it?
well, yeah, but I was with Tech V when they won the Yamaha, but maybe it was Petronas, and obviously they got all the stuff, and they get a swing arm out the truck. So it would have been either 2018 or it would have been 2020. I can't remember which year, but anyway, the string arm they pulled out was scribed on it Colin Edwards. Colin Edwards
That
wrote.
was probably 2018 then, which is obviously the reason Hervé left, is because they were getting such old crap.
Yeah, but I got a feeling the bike was similar in 2020.
Oh, well,
I'm sure.
like if that's the case, and it's a Colin
But the
Edwards
point
swing
is,
arm.
the point is, if it was 2018 or 2020, you can see how little development they have done. But on the flip side, when you've got a bike that's winning a championship, when you've got riders in a satellite team at Petronas getting second in the championship, what do you change on a bike?
Yeah, like because that part of me is like I totally agree with Fabio. Like it hasn't changed in 4 years, correct? But then the other half of me is like, if you want something, develop it. Like they tested so much,
Mm.
and then they reverted back to the 2021 bike.
But
Like
I did hear last year, end of last year, they'd employed a Ferrari Formula One
Luca
engine developer.
Marmarini, who developed
So,
the Aprilia engine before this.
so maybe what they're doing is putting their money into that, because
I
at the end,
agree. I've said
yeah,
this on the pod before, actually, that I think we won't see the effects of what Marmarini's doing this year.
no. But the problem is, hey, you could do little things to improve, but if you were to add, say, 10 horsepower to that bike, you might have to change the strength of the chassis or the swing arm to
That's
cope for it.
that's exactly it. It's the classic problem, isn't it? Of adding more power shows up deficiencies in other areas.
Exactly. So I think that's what, or electronics or anything. So they've got to be careful, with what they develop this year, that it's not going to be wasting money. I
Yeah.
think that's, if the riders can accept that. I mean, yes, same but not same. But think of Red Bull in 2021. They sacrificed that year with financially, and put that money towards 22, and look what they did.
And catering.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right.
Um,
Um,
yeah.
I can tell we're both getting knackered now, so let's push this along because I'm getting tired and I need to edit this. So let's go along. Martin and Marquez, straight up, yes or no? Do you punish Martin for that? We have covered it. So what would you give him?
Yes. Double long lap.
Agreed. Easy enough.
Yeah.
Augusto Fernandez getting here. Is that his first top 10? I think it is.
Yep.
Fair play to the man.
I'm really happy to see what he's doing, and but you could say, but people didn't crash. People crash, but you've got to be in it to win it. I've said that before.
I posted about Jonas Folger actually, and
Mhm.
saying about how good his 12th was, and I actually put on the post, and you can say that if other people had finished, he wouldn't have got 12th, this and the other. I think it's more admirable that someone who has little experience on the bike in both Folger and Augusto were
Mhm.
able to keep it rubber side down and ride to point finishes where far more experienced and far better, in inverted comma, riders threw it up the
I
road.
fully agree. I fully agree, and not only that. I mean, from Augusto's side is how close he was to the front. He wasn't miles off.
28.217 seconds off the win.
It's not that bad, in my opinion.
That for the only rookie as
For a
well, so he
rookie,
doesn't even have
yeah.
another rookie reference.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it was in Portugal. Someone said that Remy and Rao finished 43 seconds off the leader, and Augusto was 21.
Yeah. Granted, I think that KTM has improved hugely this year.
Sure, but as a rookie, and again, you've got no references or anything like that, and you're straight out batting on with the fastest people.
Yeah.
Like, I've got to give credit to Augusto, and having worked with him, he is extremely professional. Like, when he comes to the track, he doesn't joke around. He's there to work.
One thing that I wanted to ask you actually is like one thing that really comes across for me from Augusto is his intelligence. He seems like a very, very smart person, both on and off the bike. Like he seems like a very smart.
To most extent, yes. I'm just trying. There was a few situations, like I remember the start of the year, he was not a fan of outbreaking people.
Like you could see.
It was something he struggled. And actually, for me last year, the Silverstone race. I mean, for me, for a number of reasons, it was the best race of the year. But he did the last lap overtake, really at the last corner at Silverstone, penultimate corner. And I just knew that wasn't his style to do that. So he did it, and that for me was when it changed.
See, that's where like the intelligence comes into it, knowing.
Another race for me was Sachsenring, when he overtook 3 riders on 3 consecutive laps in turns 3 and 4.
Yes,
and
I remember commentary actually pointing that out.
And I just thought, like, he did it once, and I thought, God, that was a brave move to do it. It was such a long, tight corner. Then he did it the next lap, and we were like, fair play. Like, you obviously got confidence. But then to do it a third time, and I just thought that, I mean, it's cocky. Yeah. But
if you can do it, why not, isn't it?
Yeah, there wasn't really a space, but he made a clean pass, and you just think, that's smart, you know?
Yeah.
And other races in the year were the same. Of course, the tension got to him. I remember Aragon was a bit of we salvaged it, but it was a disaster.
Yeah.
He got a 2-second lead and was flying. But then he just started to panic, and basically sort of, and his own words were, because of the pressure, the little spin he felt 5 times worse than it was.
That's what pressure does to you, though, isn't it?
Exactly. So, but he knew that it was pressure, and he managed it. So,
it takes a smart person to know that it's pressure, as well. Like that's my point. Is more off the bike. He strikes me like his English is perfect.
His English is phenomenal.
Like, absolutely perfect.
Probably also better Italian.
Than mine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like you're thinking, like this is a man who clearly cares about everything. That like he's very deliberate, I find.
Yeah, and his dad Augusto as well. The way that they are together, they have a very good structure about how they work. And he's very level-headed. He doesn't get excited. He doesn't get frustrated. He just tries to deal with the situation.
You're a product of your environment at the end of the day, you know.
Yeah, and so now seeing what he's doing in MotoGP is I'm also a little surprised because he spent so long on a 600 because he didn't come the Moto3 route. He came from World Supersport, or European Supersport, whatever. But so he's actually always been on a 600. So to jump on a GP bike and understand the character of that is quite. It's impressed me how he's adapted to the class.
Yeah, I just think he straight up like everybody's like, oh, he's going to be out in 2024. Bullshit.
No, I think he deserves a seat there. If I'm honest with you,
He earned his shot winning a Moto2 title. Few
yeah.
races in, he's absolutely showing he deserves to be there.
I know before the season, KTM all said, "Oh, we've learnt our lesson with the old incident with Remy and Raul last year, and we don't want to do it again." But I can't see them finding a way to get rid of Augusto this year. I think he's being
Yeah, I think
really
Paul's out,
good
to
for
be honest. So Paul out, Pedro in. Job done.
maybe.
And to finish it off, Marco Bezzecchi keeping the championship lead. That didn't look likely until Pecco went down, did it?
Happy for it. Well, yeah, sort of another old rider of mine.
Is there anybody you haven't worked with? Fucking hell, like.
It's just not many, but he's a smart rider,
Well,
and
I love Bez. He's just
his
a cool
character
guy.
on and off the bike. Character on and off the bike is just incredible. But he's probably one of the riders that I've enjoyed working with the most because you ask him to do something, boom, he'll do it, and his feedback is so accurate as well. It's really quite phenomenal. So to see what he's doing now, staying level-headed after what he achieved in Argentina and just chipping away this week in Austin. When I was with him in Tech 3, I think it was his best qualifying or best result or 12th or something, but he doesn't like the track so much. So to come away with those solid positions.
Do you know what I was thinking? Genuinely, even this early, champions ride. That's the kind of thing world champions do. They maximise their bad days.
Yeah, and unfortunately for him, he's not won a world title, but I think his future is very, very bright in MotoGP.
Before this season started, he was my bet for the title. I was iffing and ahhing.
Yeah.
But having seen how he's hopped on that 22, like he is literally on Pecco's bike that he hopped off of Valencia.
I think he will be the top satellite rider.
I do genuinely think as long as Pecco is not in that mix, or Anea, he will win that title. He will beat anybody else. Like, even at the satellite Ducatis, they'll let him fight. Like, as long as there's not a red bike in the mix, he will be the world champion, in my opinion.
Yeah. I'm interested to see what happens when Bastianini comes back, because I think Bastianini sort of will give Bez quite a bit of hassle, and I think he'll even anyone can give a bit of hassle.
Yeah.
But no, for Bezzecchi, I'm super stoked for him.
Yes.
And you can see he's using his head.
Yes, that's the main thing for me, is like the again, intelligence, the smartness to be able to know when you're in the right, in the wrong. Like, okay, he crashed in the sprint at Portugal, but he hasn't put a foot wrong since.
Exactly, and this is, I mean, this whole chat we've spoken about intelligence, consistency, and managing situations, and he's the perfect example this year of just taking it when it's there, but also just bringing it home when he has to.
Yeah, because he's leading the championship with just over half of the points that were available right now. Is this going to be an inconsistent season for everybody, or is it going to change when we get to Europe? That's my main question now.
I will be interested to see how the sprint races develop in Europe. I still don't think the racers have quite adjusted to the sprint races yet.
I don't think they ever will, to be perfectly honest with you, because you've got a main race the day after.
Exactly. So that's where I think you might see a few. Like, look at the KTMs; they've come to the front in the sprint races, But then on a Sunday, they've struggled a bit more. So I think the sprint race is going to throw up a few curveballs that will affect the championship.
Well,
Um,
they could
I
have.
hope.
They've already affected the championship with who
I,
is not in them.
well, I hope it does not continue to go down that route of injuries from the sprint race. Um,
I think there's a high likelihood, though, especially as it's just it offers a dive bomb. You know what I mean? Like,
100%.
and that's the downside of it, which is fine as long
Mm,
as they ride within themselves.
yes.
But
But at the end of the day, you tell a racer to race, you tell a racer to
exactly,
finish in front of the next one.
yeah, exactly. It's
It's
like
got to be close racing.
yeah, that's it. Like if there's a guy and you can attack him, no MotoGP rider worth their salt is going to be like, not today.
It, exactly. So I don't know. Uh, You just got to be there.
Yeah,
Be close to the front as you can. Don't be greedy, and just take it when it's available to take.
yeah, agreed. Like my opinion is they should have just done two sprint races, half points each,
On a Saturday, you mean?
a Saturday and a Sunday, so you get 12 points for that, 12 points for the second race. Then that would have thrown up some interesting results.
Yeah, but they couldn't do that. There's not enough time on a Sunday to fit in Moto 2, Moto 3. We've already
Yeah,
lost
no,
warm up.
totally replaced the long race with another sprint.
Oh, beg your pardon. I don't think manufacturers would like that. They like the 45-minute races.
Yes, 100%. Like it's never going to happen, but God, imagine
Mm.
that would be mental.
World Superbike format.
Yeah, that would be mad. So to finish off the MotoGP results, Alex Rins was first. Luca Marini was second in the main race. I'm not going to bother with the sprint. Like what I assume is everybody who listens to this has watched it, so don't really even need the results. But there we are. Fabio Q third, Maverick fourth, Miguel fifth. Like that's good considering he's still quite broken.
Mm-hmm.
Bezzy sixth, Zarco seventh, Morbidelli eighth. Uh, I did want to mention Morbidelli very quickly. I don't think it's fair to judge based on COTA with the Yamaha.
No, he needs a few more races.
Yes, because people are saying, "Oh, Argentina was a false dawn." You can't judge yet. You just cannot. It's that simple. When we get to Europe, if he continues that form, we'll be like, "Oh, maybe it wasn't." So
Let's see what happens in the next. Was it 3 or 4 races until we have the 3 weeks off in May?
yes, that's going to be the telling point, and whether
Mm-hmm.
he keeps his seat, in my opinion, quite simply. DG 9th, Augusto 10th, Pirro 11th, Jonas Folger 12th, and Brad Binder was the last rider coming on 13th after crashing and remounting. Of the riders who didn't finish was Stefan Bradl, not doing the best job as a test rider there, Taka Nakagami, Joan Mir, Pecco Bagnaia, Raul Fernandez, Jack Miller, and the riders who did not finish the first lap were Jorge Martin and Alex Marquez and Aleix Spargaro. Just a quick point on both Raul and Aleix. Both apparently crashed due to ride height malfunctions. So, yeah.
I did not hear this.
Yep, apparently both of them were due to ride height devices sticking. So, that's an interesting one if it's true. Both Aprilias. Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs, if it's true.
That happened before, didn't it? Where did that last year? Didn't that happen somewhere?
Well, for the Aprilias or in...
Yeah, I thought was it for Aleix last year? Some of the
Are you thinking of Japan where the pit mode was on?
no. I thought ride height was stuck on the Aprilia before.
Probably was, I just can't think of it now.
I can't remember.
Tired scrambled brain can't think of it. But yeah, that is your classification, and I think that's a good place to end. Thank you very much for coming on, Matt. Appreciate it. You're welcome back
No
anytime.
worries.
I
Enjoyed it a lot.
yeah, I think people are going to appreciate your insights. So you're welcome back anytime you want.
Let's give it a go.
Yeah. So good luck in Jerez, and we will speak to you after Jerez, hopefully.
Thank you very much. Cheers for having me.
Yep. Thank you, and speak to you soon. Bye.